we've got some breaking news. So again, as we said last week, we're coming to you because we're all operating remotely right now. So our radio broadcast is going out in a separate radio feed that actually is not covering this material at all. Instead, what we're doing is coming to you from my home office. Logan is mic'd up this time, by the way. I'm happy to say.
Yeah, I'm here.
So everybody can hear Logan. There you go. So but we do have some breaking news. For the first time in history, the U.S. Supreme Court is going to hear oral arguments, and they're going to hear these oral arguments via, and this is what's fascinating here, via that was Logan's finger. We're trying to get some...
Restart that thing.
Okay, so let me start over. We're having a little bit of a technical setup here. So, look, for the first time in history, the Supreme Court of the United States issued an order this morning, just about an hour and a half ago, saying that they're going to hear certain cases that were set for argument this term. I was supposed to argue. We have 3 cases at the Supreme Court for the president, 2 involving congressional subpoenas, 1 involving a subpoena from a district attorney in New York aimed at the president, that were supposed to be argued on the 31st of May. Obviously of March. Obviously that did not happen, and the court postponed the arguments. And then everybody's kind of been waiting to see what they are going to do. Some state Supreme Courts have experimented with Zoom, the technology. It's gotten kind of mixed review. I mean, Zoom, I think, has done very well, but some proceeding got hacked into, so that obviously got eliminated. So instead, what the Supreme Court decided this morning, on a certain number of the cases, not all the cases that have not been argued, but on a series of them, including our 3, that they are going to hear them via teleconference. So over the phone, we're going to conduct oral arguments before the Supreme Court of the United States. First time in U.S. history on a substantive matter where the Supreme Court's taking oral arguments on the phone. So counsel will be on the phones, and you'll make your arguments. The justices will individually ask questions. They will each be operating remotely in their own chambers. So, but here's I think this is great, actually. You will hear in real time the oral arguments. There'll be no video, obviously, because we're going to be in our offices or home offices or wherever the lawyers are going to argue the cases. But the actual audio from the arguments is going to be released in real time to the media. So I don't know if the Supreme Court will be streaming it on its site. I don't even know, Logan, if they have that. I'm not even sure they have that technology. But the media will get immediate access to it for real-time distribution.
Yeah, and regardless, the Supreme Court usually uploads the arguments within a few hours or a few days at most. So we always usually get the audio from that, but we'll make sure that we're covered.
Yeah, so this is going to be big. I mean, in the sense of, I mean, it's historic. I've argued a lot of Supreme Court cases, but I've never argued one over the phone. And I have had one where they released the audio pretty quickly after we argued, and that was a case involving campaign finance reform. So I want to talk about those cases and kind of what's going to happen there. We'll take your questions as well. So this is where I'll be preparing, because our office is pretty much closed. Now, we haven't decided yet where we'll actually do the argument. Obviously, you have to have a strong phone signal, the right kind of setup. So we're going to figure that out. There are 3 cases that we're involved in. I'm going to show you the joint appendix. You see how thick that is. I mean, this is the joint appendix for 2 of the cases. So 2 of the cases are consolidated, and that means they've been put together for one oral argument. That oral argument is going to be an hour. And then there's a 3rd case involving the New York District Attorney who's tried to subpoena the President of the United States also. And that case is also 1 hour. And in both of those cases, the Solicitor General of the United States, that's part of the Department of Justice, that's the Solicitor General is the Supreme Court lawyer for the Justice Department. He will be arguing on our behalf as part of the case. So I will argue 20 minutes. The Solicitor General will argue 10 minutes, so it's 30 minutes. And then the other side, we haven't seen the final order yet. I'm assuming they're going to stick with the time frames. And then the other side will argue for 30 minutes. Normally what I would do is reserve 3 to 5 minutes for what's called rebuttal. And that is my opportunity to respond to the other side's arguments. So the way we're breaking this case up is one of my colleagues, Patrick Strawbridge, from the Constable McCarthy firm, who's my co-counsel in these cases, I'm going to have him, he's going to argue the cases involving the congressional subpoenas. Those should go, originally they were scheduled that those would actually be first. We don't know the order yet. I'm assuming it's still going to be that case would go first, and then Right after that, I would argue the case involving the DA, although I would mention the previous case as well, because there's some interrelated legal principles. So what do you do in a situation like this when you've never done it before? So you normally do, all the briefs are done. So I'm holding here on my desk are all the briefs filed in the cases. Actually, there's another stack just as high as this. And as I showed you, the joint appendix for the one case is here. In the case involving the DA, actually, we were able to put the joint appendix. It's not really a joint appendix, it's called a petition appendix. It's in the white brief, which is the cert petition brief. So what we'll do is I put all my notes and all of my documents. I drafted what I'd like to cover in oral argument. I drafted that already because I was getting ready for an argument that was going to take place, basically 3 weeks ago. Pull them out of the briefcase today. Already started doing that this morning. Going to set my office up here, and I'm going to work on the oral argument preparation over the next period of time. Now, I don't know if we're going to go the first week, the second week, the third week. I would suspect we're probably early in the calendar for May. And this will allow the decisions to come out usually by the end of June. Whether they'll be later this year because of the situation. All the justices, by the way, will participate, but they're going to be remote. So they will be not with each other. They're going to be in their own homes around Washington, D.C., or wherever they might find themselves. So that's how that's going to go down. I'm not even sure all the justices are in Washington, D.C., frankly, with this. I'm not positive on that, but they'll all participate remotely. It's going to make it interesting because some of the dynamic, when you actually make the argument in person, you can see the justice. You're very close to where they are, which obviously with this pandemic is not a good idea. But they'll interrupt each other sometimes. They'll sometimes talk over each other. You could kind of get a little bit of a vibe from the justices to the questions. Here, I think it's going to probably be a lot more structured, I'm guessing. So when we do moot courts, and when we do a moot court argument, we usually do a situation where we would stand up, you put on your suit, and you argue the case in front of 8 or 9 lawyers who then ask you questions. But on this, because it is going to be over the phone, what we're going to do, and this is going to be unique. We were talking about this with my colleagues this morning. What we're going to do is do the moot courts over the phone. So we all get used to how we're going to respond and get used to the setup. And again, I don't know if it's going to be over a speakerphone. I can't imagine you're going to hold a phone to you. Logan's much more. The speakerphones get good quality.
Yeah, we have some good ones, and you can do an earpiece. There's a lot of different options that you have.
Yeah,
so we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we're going to figure it out the best way. But you'll actually be able. Apparently, you're going to be able to hear the whole thing.
Yeah, people are asking a lot of questions about that. Sure. Will the public? Obviously, that's the first one. Will the public be able to hear it? We at least know the media will be able to hear it, and possibly that at some point you'll be able to hear it for sure.
Yeah. So, reports are that they're going to actually release the audio to the media in real time. And you want to explain? You can explain what that means.
Yeah, there'll just be a live stream for there to hear. Now, this will be audio. A few people asked, will it be like FaceTime or like Zoom?
They're not
so you'll be able
Zoom.
to see facial expressions?
Nope.
How does that change for you?
Well, I was just talking about that. So normally you can get a kind of you read the body language, you kind of get the intensity of the justices. Over the phone, that's going to be a different challenge. I watched a Zoom oral argument that took place in the Kansas Supreme Court, and actually I thought it went pretty well. One lawyer was having some audio problems on his end. That makes it, I think that kind of problem is probably one of the reasons why the Supreme Court decided, let's just go with phones. It's kind of a 1980s technology in one sense, but it's probably the safest. But you don't get to get the kind of body language of the justices. That doesn't happen. But you are going to you'll tell by the questions, it's going to be different. I mean, I've never done it this way before at a Supreme Court.
Well, I'm curious with that because phones, most phones right now you're using the internet.
Right.
Most of the time, these are not. You're using VoIP. So
Yeah.
I'm curious if really they've thought that part through because the connection, though, will be stronger. It'll be clearer.
If you're what?
On the phone, because you're not worrying about video, or even if it's just audio only, because the video in general is what bogs all this down. So I could see that being the problem.
It did in that Kansas case. Some of them were very clear, some of them weren't, and sometimes they talked over each other. But it was that Zoom technology where whoever was talking, then like a box went around them so you knew who was actually speaking, and they would say Justice so-and-so. Normally, what I do is, if Justice Sotomayor was asking questions, I would say, Justice Sotomayor, the answer to that is such and such. Here it's going to be different. You're not going to see them. Now, I know the voices, but I don't know, do you take that risk? And I don't know. I haven't gone that far in it. We don't have the date yet, exact date. We know it's going to be Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday during the first 3 weeks of May. They took a lot of cases and are just binding them over to the next term in October.
So why did you not get pushed over, you think?
The cases involving the president, I think that's number one. I think that's why they didn't push them over. So they're important cases, and they want to get them addressed this term. That's what I think.
I did have one question. I'm going to address it myself. They said, "Are you left-handed, or is this or do you have your suits custom made in a weird way?" No, what you're actually seeing is a mirrored image.
Yes, so right.
Yeah, so a lot of people.
You mean, do I want my pocket over here?
Yeah, that's what I thought. Someone said that. No, just to clarify, the image
I did notice that when I pulled the guitar, I looked like Paul McCartney playing a little left-handed there. Yeah, no.
Zoom actually has it to where you don't, but Facebook Live, it flips it, unfortunately. So
yeah, no, I'm right-handed. But if
so
this will help you to make sure I'm right-handed, I'll move it to the left hand,
Yeah.
and it'll be the right hand. This pen, by the way, was one of the impeachment pens. I don't know if I'm going to get a separate series of pens for the Supreme Court. I usually do. I got to think about that a little bit. This is kind of unique. It's very unique, actually.
Might as well get a whole bunch where you could pass them out at the end. It's like you're signing a bill.
Yeah, we could do a signing.
Like the impeachment hearing.
I guess we'll be able to come to you right after. If they do it at 10 o'clock in the morning, we won't be done in time for radio.
Yeah, we could make collectible pens. There you go.
We could do a collectible pen.
A lot of people are chiming in. They want to know specifics. They said, "Are you happy about this decision?" It's something that you are. I mean, obviously, every lawyer would rather argue.
Well, I would rather be in the chamber. I think you got the whole majesty of the moment and all of that. But what I'm happy about is that the cases will be resolved. I'm pleased that the court is going to. I think they picked the best method, by the way. I think the videography was just the potential for things to go wrong were just too great. This is the Supreme Court of the United States. So, one of my colleagues said, "Are you going to wear a suit, even if it's just you on the phone?" And I am. Just out of respect for the institution. I don't know how many. They're probably not wearing their robes, but I'm going to wear.
I'd like to think that they are.
But that's what will create the image that they are. I have no idea.
We can make cardboard cutouts of them for you to look at.
You could do a whole set. Yeah. So and then I'm thinking, do you do it seated, or do I stand? Now, I probably will stand.
One of the good things, if you are even, if you're the first one, that's great, that's historic. But I'm not going to be able to hear other people do it.
Yeah.
So that is a positive if you aren't the very, very first one.
Yeah, I have the feeling
that you will be.
We might be. I'm not sure. I mean, we may not be the very first one. Maybe they want to get a couple under the belt before they deal with 3 cases involving the president of the United States.
Yeah. Well, people actually are chiming in about that. Some people here don't know what the case is. So why don't we?
This
is Jay Sekulow case.
Yeah. So this is. There's 3 cases that we have at the Supreme Court, all for the President of the United States. 2 of them are Donald Trump versus Mazars and Donald Trump versus Deutsche Bank. But these were congressionally issued subpoenas to third parties, the bank and the accountants. My case is Donald J. Trump. Well, I'm on all 3 of them. Donald J. Trump versus President of the United States versus Cyrus Vance, the district attorney for the county of New York. In the first 2 cases, Congress issued subpoena for the president's personal records to his accountants, for their tax returns and other documents, and also to the bank. What is interesting, the district attorney in New York copied the exact same subpoena that the Congress issued, the exact same one, and issued it to, in this particular case, the subpoena went again to the accounting firm to produce all of these records. But just think about this moment. They copied the congressional subpoenas verbatim, purportedly for a different purpose, but they needed the exact same information. So, I mean, this is obviously, when we get into the argument, this will be more what we're talking about. But look, I mean, so it is exciting to go to the Supreme Court of the United States and be there with the justices. I was really excited that my grandchildren could attend, but I guess they can. It's just going to be different. So you get a really nice quill pen. I should have brought one of those. I will bring one of those next time. You get a nice quill pen as a souvenir. I guess I'll send them to everybody. And you normally seat it at a table, and then you go up to a podium, and I'll figure out how I'm going to do it, which way is best to do it. I haven't decided that yet, but it's going to be different. There's no question about that. I mean, it's some year I've had. Think about this. Bob Mueller investigation, an impeachment trial, and the Supreme Court arguments on the phone, all finishing up within a year. It's pretty. Article 1, Article 2, and Article 3. All 3 articles of the United States Constitution.
Matt asked, are there any advantages you see in presenting in this new format?
Advantages? No, I don't think advantages. I don't see where it's beneficiary, except that you're going to get the arguments done. The cases are going to get some closure, which I think is important. I mean, I would rather do them in person, but I'd also rather not be subject to the coronavirus, nor have the justices or their staffs on the Supreme Court subject to the coronavirus either. So it's not just the court I'm worried about, or just the justices, but it's the staffs, it's the lawyers. The lawyers I'm against in the Vance case are in New York City. So what are the chances of them being able to really, let's think about that, in the next 4 weeks, coming out of Manhattan, going to Washington, D.C., where are they going to stay? What are they going to do? Do they have to quarantine for 14 days? So I think this solves a lot of problems.
There's been a lot of talk just over the years about the age of the justices and the lifelong terms.
Yep.
Someone brought up this actually interesting point. Do you think this sets an interesting precedent moving forward that they could start doing it this way?
Yeah,
or could they have cameras? And what could this change the future of how Supreme Court cases are taken?
I think they probably did not go with the video conferencing, because if they went there, I don't know if there'd be any going back. I think if they had it and it worked fine, people would expect them to do it. Yeah. So I think that this was. Plus, I think the technology, although it's very good, is not. I mean, we've seen that they've been hacked, so I thought that was a risk that they were not willing to take. And I think the phones kind of do it. But I mean, I can't imagine doing this. I mean, yes, Justice Ginsburg. I mean, so I think you'd have to have some kind of setup. I mean,
and what about for the future though? Because if someone like Justice Ginsburg, who wasn't able to serve, there were some cases, right?
Some cases she did not hear.
Well,
right.
What if could this give her precedent to now do those over the phone, even if she is the only one not there?
No, what they do there is they can review the transcripts and they can review the audio tapes of the oral argument. They do that. The justices sometimes justices get sick and they can't come, and that happens. But I think the court is very hesitant to move into a live television coverage of the Supreme Court proceedings. I just don't see it. I think the most you've ever seen of John Roberts was the 3 weeks during the impeachment hearing. That's just kind of the nature of the way the court operates. Well, I mean, what do you think the viewership? I'm going to ask Logan this question. What do you think the viewership for something like this would be? I have no idea.
Viewership for, I mean, if they went televised?
No, just the way we're going to be doing
audio.
it.
I think there'll be a lot of people listening, but I think it'll be people hearing. I think Supreme Court arguments in general, if you're not very accustomed to the format, they're very entertaining. But if you don't know what you're listening to, I think they become kind of a mess unless you listen to sound bites.
Now, what's interesting is a lot like C-SPAN, what they'll do when they do an audio release of the oral argument, they will have artist renderings that they show during the
renderings and then photos,
pictures of the lawyers. Yeah, so people may do that.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll do that. I'm sure we'll provide some way for you all to listen to, because it's public record.
Oh, we'll be public, yeah.
Yeah, we'll be able to post, as we need. So I'm sure there'll be stuff like that as time rolls on.
Yeah. So the preparation will start really today. To kind of bring the stuff back out. What I'm going to do is go through all my notes I've taken, and then I read the briefs in reverse, and then probably later in the week we'll start talking to our colleagues about questions, and we're going to try to get used to doing it over the phone. That's a new moment for everybody. So, we were talking about how do we do the moot courts? Do we do it by Zoom? Do we do it by, and I said, no, I think we need to do it by we need to get used to doing it this way.
Yeah, people are asking specifics. I think there's some we just don't know yet. Like they asked, Diane asked, will the justices announce themselves before asking, so you know who it is?
That's interesting.
But you have to know what their voices
I thought about
sound
this.
like.
Does the Chief Justice say, Justice Ginsburg now has a question? I mean, I don't know how they're going to, normally they don't. They just go.
But you can see them.
But you see them. Yeah. So here it's interesting how they're going to do that. That's a great question. I wonder if how structured it will be versus not very structured when you're doing it the way we do it. I mean, when you do it live in the courtroom. I mean, I feel bad for lawyers at the first time that they have a Supreme Court argument and they can't argue it in the courtroom. I mean, I'm sure it's disappointing. On the other hand, even though we're in a horrible, tragic moment in our history with the pandemic, it is part of history that is very unique that this would take place. I mean, I had emails from text messages from friends of mine that are Supreme Court lawyers saying, okay, this is like never happens.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally never happened.
And you've argued how many now in front of the Supreme Court?
This will be number 14
So 14. So this is at least it's something different. It's something fun. It's one to be talking about forever.
I guess so, because the other ones I think kind of, they're good, but they're like, it is what it is. I mean, it's going to be a different feeling. There's something about when you stand up and they bang the gavel. I wonder if they're going to do that, for instance. Are they going to do the cry of the court? All men, all persons having business before the Supreme Court of the United States should give their attention and draw an eye. The Chief Justice and the Associate Justice of the Supreme Court are now in session. God save the United States and this honorable court. Are they going to do that?
So it's
Bang the gavel.
It's just going to be like, hello? Can
What did
you
we
hear
just
me?
say?
Can you hear me?
I know. That's what I'm worried about. Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, so that could be some rough times, but I'm sure they'll get
don't
used
get me
to
laughing.
it.
Okay.
All right. Well, a lot of people are just thankful that it's happening and that the Supreme Court was actually willing, because I think that's the thing. They were willing to adjust their precedent, which is very, I mean, the fact that there have never been cameras in the Supreme Court.
That's an institution. It's not like, doesn't change. So in a situation like this, I think what you saw was that they realized that they were going to either have to move all these cases over to the next session, which doesn't start till October, or decide them on the brief without oral argument. I think that's kind of risky. And so I think they came up with a smart compromise. Again, I think it's something we're all going to have to get used to.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be it's a different format, a different feel, a different approach. But like I said, I'm going to start reviewing the stuff this afternoon. So I'll mostly be walking, swimming, and reading my briefs. That's how I get ready.
People are asking about it because some people are just brand new to the Supreme Court.
Yep.
This was from Kathy. She said, will your Supreme Court obligations prevent you from appearing on Jay Sekulow Live? Just to clarify, you are not becoming a justice of the Supreme Court.
No. I'm an advocate before the Supreme Court, which I have been for 4 decades.
This is just an hour.
This is, we've got 3 cases, so it's 2 hours. But yes. No, that's very funny. Obviously, I probably won't be on that day, but I bet we're live that day, and I bet we're talking about it. And maybe it depends on what time the argument is. We don't know yet. I mean, is it 10 o'clock in the morning? Is it
8 o'clock at night?
2 o'clock in the afternoon? I don't know. I mean,
after your local news.
We're supposed to get more information from the court's office today, but they issued this right this morning.
This is from Matt. It said, do you think the justices not seeing you and not seeing the other justices could change the potential outcome of the verdict?
No, I don't think it changes the outcome of the decision. I think it does change the dynamic of the oral argument. It's like some people are saying, how are they going to get, how do you get yourself motivated for this? I mean, you're literally over a phone. Well, they're still the justices of the Supreme Court of the United States. You have to have respect for them individually, even the ones you disagree with, and also the institution. My initial reaction of wearing the suit is just because, even though it's just going to be,
it's mental. You got to be.
You want to be prepped for it, but I think it's just respect for the institution.
All right.
But I still haven't figured out, if you're mic'd up like this, for instance, does this work better than a phone for them? What do they hear better? That's what, one of my colleagues was worried about phone signal strength.
Yeah.
Don't let your battery wear out.
Yeah, we're going to all have to deal with that. And figure out
I'm sure the court's going to give us parameters this afternoon or tomorrow as to what, or today. I'm sure we'll get them today as to what kind of how to handle this. Because I don't think it's, we're in a sense, because no one's ever done this before, it's that way. Logan, if I hand that, is that going to move that entire thing? That's a piece of the Supreme Court.
Hold on.
Is that going to move your entire lighting setup here? I don't want to mess you up.
What are you asking me?
That marble. Too dangerous?
I would not move that marble. Hold on. Let me try.
This is like moving.
You answer this question. While I work on this, you answer this question.
Okay, I'm going to.
This is interesting. We kind of talked about this, but I think it's interesting. Jamie said, "I love that the court did this. Shows they're more flexible than even Congress. I wish Congress would do the same." So why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, it'd be nice if Congress would allow voting remotely, because why do we want to expose? Well, I'm going to do this really carefully. Okay, can I show people this? Okay, let me tell you what this is. This right here is a marble square from the Supreme Court of the United States. I'm on the board of the Supreme Court.
What do you mean from the Supreme Court?
Yeah, so I'm on the board of the Supreme Court Historic Society. And when they are doing renovations or repairs, sometimes they cut they cut the marble and redo pieces. And this is a piece of it. So that's a piece of the Supreme Court of the United States. And that's the seal of the Supreme Court of the United States right there. I'm going to give this back to you, Logan.
That's the most you'll ever see of the Supreme Court on camera.
You know what I may do? Maybe I'll do this. I'll put this right there when I'm arguing.
But not right now.
But you don't think I should argue from in here, correct? You're worried about the phone. Logan's worried about the phone from in here. It would be odd.
Our phone service in here is not excellent. But,
it's not excellent. And then this is my trial. This is like the beginning trial notebook, which has the case. And then I think we have some with the seal of the court on it, too. But obviously, we're going to go back through these. and start that up. I mean, you got to prepare for it like it's the real thing, because it is the real thing. It's just going to be, and it's going to have more, public attention to it, although you don't think it'll be anywhere near like the impeachment proceedings. I'm sure not.
A lot of people are saying if they would broadcast it fully, if there was video and audio, if it was a television event, then I think you'd have massive viewers.
They will be very creative, though. The networks, they hire courtroom artists that do very detailed, they already have them, of the justices, of the lawyers arguing in front of the court. They have those from the past. They may pull those out. So I don't know. They're going to have to be creative. But it's also going to depend on the situation with the pandemic and what's happening and what's going on. But there's not going to be a dozen people watching you do it. No one's going to be, other than I guess your colleagues, no one's going to be in the room while you're doing this. So that's kind of unique too. The whole thing is unique.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Arguing a case to the Supreme Court in the United States over the phone is, it is the Supreme Court adapting to they had this with the outbreak in 1918 of the Spanish flu, when they did have arguments for, I think, 2 months. And then they felt it was safe enough for them to do it. But here, the situation obviously is not that. So we're going to do them by the phone.
All right. There's still a lot of questions coming in, mostly about the Supreme Court. A lot of people have their concerns about the safety of everyone, and still obviously about the COVID-19 and where we stand.
We'll talk more about that tomorrow.
But we'll deal with that tomorrow. I think, though, you're good when you're ready.
So that does it.
If you want to kind of wrap up for those who are just joining us.
Yeah, if you joined us late, so the Supreme Court this morning issued an order saying that they're going to hold oral argument in just a few of the cases that did not get heard. There was about 19 that did not get heard in March and April. We had 3 of those. I think it looks like about 10 of them they're going to hear via teleconference, by the telephone, in May. The others are being moved over till October of next year, and hopefully they'll be able to be back. And we will be doing this by telephone. First time in Supreme Court history that's ever taken place. But they are going to release the audio live in real time, so you'll get to hear it. I'm sure we'll be able to talk about it. So that kind of does it for today's broadcast. Again, we haven't been a radio audience that get to hear this. I think we'll have to figure that out. I guess we'll do that later this week. We'll do it for radio. But
we may be able to add this to a radio broadcast.
Okay. There you go. Yeah. Okay, good idea. Maybe we should do that. How long have we gone, Logan, roughly? About 30 minutes?
About 30.
Yeah, so maybe we can add it to a radio broadcast so they can get the information on this. Well, that's going to do it, folks. Thanks for listening in. We encourage you to stay engaged with the ACLJ at aclj.org or Facebook and Twitter.